everyone? Good. Thank you, Ashley. And thank you all for being here. It feels really good to be back at a women's college. As Ashley mentioned, I went to Wellesley College, which is right outside of Boston, for my undergraduate degree. Had an amazing experience there. Wouldn't trade it for the world. I actually spent a semester at Spelman College, our sister school in Atlanta, for my junior fall semester. So that was quite a different experience, but very complimentary to Wellesley. So I really enjoyed that. I met a lot of powerful women leaders there. I'm going to introduce our panel for this evening, but I'm actually going to have them do a little bit more of the introductions. We have Tre Tailor right here, and then Lori Coon next to her, and Darci Strickland with WIS-19. Sorry about that. So Tre, let's start with you.
Okay, my name is Tre Tailor, and as many of you know, because I've been with them the last 5 weeks doing what you're doing now.
Okay.
I've done radio, television, voiceover work. I've done some nationally syndicated work with the Tom Joyner Morning Show, who was actually one of the first, the first African American to do syndicated shows. And I've also acted and done a lot of performing. I actually wanted to be an actress growing up. I grew up in New York, was going to the High School of Performing Arts, ended up moving to South Carolina because my family moved there. And at that time, I just didn't think, not being in New York, I could really pursue my acting. My brother was doing broadcasting in New York, so I started doing broadcasting, went to Hampton, and like some of you, I ended up having to leave school because I had a child. I ended up coming back and finishing my career. And if there is one thing I'll say about the career that I've chosen, is that it has been very male-dominated. As a woman, it has been extremely challenging trying to be your own person and not be perceived as the B word, you know? And being able to juggle that strength and learning how to use your powers for good, I'll say, has been challenging. And also learning how to be flexible. This has been a career where I've had to be able to do a lot of different things because it's just such a fleeting career, especially in radio. I think radio even more than television. There's so much turnover, so it's so important to learn how to do a lot of different things so that if your plan A doesn't work, you've got, you know, B through Z to fall back on. So basically, like I said, I've been doing radio, television, print, and voiceover work for a little over 20 years, and right now I'm primarily freelancing, marketing, PR. I have a studio in my home. So I'm trying to
And Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori Coon. I'm publisher of Bringle Business Magazine, Columbia Business Monthly. I'm a parent in Charleston. We just launched Charleston Business Magazine this year. I grew up in the newspaper industry. My family owned a newspaper in North Carolina. My grandfather had it. He had 11 kids. When he passed away, the first set of kids inherited the publication. And ironically, in the first set, my Aunt Elizabeth Johnson took over as editor. And so for me, I didn't know that that was something that women didn't typically do. So, you know, as far as the following women and the leadership, I was fortunate enough to have a good leader in the female reign to teach me. But I started working with my dad when I was in high school. He handed me a camera and said, while you're at the ball games, go ahead and take photos. So I just learned growing up that it's just part of who I am. People say that I bleed ink if I'm cut. But my father ended up selling the newspaper when I was pregnant with my second child. And when I came back to work and the new person had taken over, my heart wasn't in it. So I ended up leaving, and I thought, what else am I going to do? And I had helped the publication computerize the whole accounting, and I'm way old, so we used to do all that by hand. But so I sold accounting systems for several years until I ended up moving to Greenville and got back into the publishing world. I worked with Creative Loafing, which was an arts and entertainment publication. It was weekly. I moved to GSA Business after about 6 years. They hired me on to turn the publication around because she was interested in selling it. And so I did that, sold myself out of a position, and ended up being hired with Brindle Business Magazine. And we picked up the other publications, Columbia, How I Met a Parent, and like I said, just launched Charleston after that. But I enjoy what I do. It's, people ask me what I do outside of work. This is something that's fun for me. I really enjoy it. So pay's not that great usually in newsprint and publishing, but you've got to love what you do. So that's it.
Hey y'all, I'm Darci Strickland. I am the noon, 5 and 6 p.m. anchor at WLTX, which is the CBS affiliate here in Columbia. This is my 18th year in TV. I was sitting here thinking about that. And when you were talking about first, I am the first African-American female meteorologist in Memphis, which is surprising to say that happened in 1998. So I have a degree from the University of South Carolina in journalism and also a degree in meteorology from Mississippi State University. That's a funny story because I did weather for a year and a half and then they said, we don't want you to do it anymore. Now I'm here. But I'm originally from the Low Country. I am a mother and a wife. I have 3 daughters. I have twins that are 8, and our oldest is 11. My husband works in real estate, and he is also the chair of Richland County Council. So in addition to being a journalist, sometimes I have to report on my husband, which is a very interesting dynamic. But I think what I see as far as journalism and how it has changed in almost the 2 decades that I've been in it is much like what Tre just said. I want to echo what she said for anybody who's interested in a career in journalism. You have to do more. When I started off, they called it a one-man band, and that's when you would write and shoot and report your story and edit your story. Now they've changed one-man band to be multimedia journalists, which means you write and shoot. And so everything old is new again in this business. Just like you guys, I am like attached to my phone. Like I get withdrawals when I'm not near it because nobody is waiting for 6 o'clock to see breaking news. They're getting their breaking news here. And so as far as the industry goes, that's the thing that I've seen change the most. I think there'll always be a position for people and faces and talent, but when it comes to information, everybody with a cell phone and a Twitter account is a journalist. So that's the direction that I've seen the industry going. I've thought about this, Ashley, as I was sitting here listening to these ladies. Anytime I get stuck on a panel, I'm the favorite person in TV. Everybody expects me to speak the most, and then I end up not saying anything. I'm always like, really? Because it's the journalist in me that wants to hear everybody else's story, and then I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to say something too. So I'll cut that part off and then let you guys ask me questions, because I just want to hear what everybody else has to say too. All right?
We want to make this as interactive as possible, so I have a few prepared questions, but be thinking because we want to have some really good, thought-provoking questions for our panelists. So the first thing I want to start with is adaptability, and all 3 of you really touched on that because we know in this world you have to be adaptable, otherwise you're not going to make it. So what challenges have you found in that role of being versatile and trying to find ways to adapt?
For me, it's, with the media, you're always connected, and like Darci said, I was learning print, and then all the changes that has gone through that stage, plus, now there's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and the world is changing so fast that it's a little bit harder to adapt and make sure that you're staying connected. I'm a little bit different When I go out, sometimes I will shove my phone way down because I'm naturally an introvert. So I like having my space to myself for a few minutes at least. So just making sure you've got that downtime too is important.
Challenges, I think I touched on that in the beginning. Really being in a male-dominated profession, there have been challenges. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember which panel it was, and one of the panelists said that she went into meetings and they would automatically ask her for the coffee, or can you make a copy or something, thinking that she was the assistant. You know, and that's probably the biggest challenge. Probably, I had two big challenges. One was the male thing, because I am a strong, outspoken female. And again, I, very early on in my career, was labeled the B, because I was strong, an outspoken female. And I just had to learn. I really, and I'm telling you, I remember learning this lesson working at a radio station in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was walking down the hallway, and just something just clicked to me that said, you are not going to change these men. You have to change. Now, that doesn't mean I had to be somebody I wasn't, but it really meant that I had to learn how to deal with them. I had to learn, and as women, we have a power that we have to learn how to harness, and that power is learning how to use our feminine ways to, for our benefit. You know, sometimes I think we've got to be a little nicer and talk a little softer and smile a little harder. And you don't have to change your position, it's just the way you say things. And that's just really my opinion. And I know it really helped me not to fight against the men in the position, but to pattern what I was saying to make them think it was their idea and not mine.
Well, and when you talk about men in our environment, do you feel like you have to work harder than the men?
Absolutely, I do. I do. Darci?
I don't think so. Not personally for me. No, I just don't. JR and I have worked together the entire time.
And it feels very equal.
It feels very equal. Some days, and you know, he told me to watch a little bit online. Some days I have to say to him, "You're not pulling your weight," you know. Yeah. So no, I don't think. And maybe it's in part because our news directors are women. You know, that may have something to do with it. But even, I mean, when I was working with male news directors, I think that I've always, and I'll say this about myself, I believe I have a very good work ethic. You know, my mama didn't raise me to be a weak woman, and so I go into work knowing that I have a job to do, and that when I pick up a paycheck at the end of every 2 weeks, it's not just because I showed up, it's because I did something when I got there. So I don't feel a level, I mean, I know it exists, but I don't feel that level of inequality in my current position.
Right, and I've seen it, and I'm like you, I mean, I'm a hard worker. I'll come early, I'll stay late, I'll grind it out, but still there were times that I experienced that it just wasn't enough, that I had to go above and beyond. And here's the other thing, being a woman and being an African American, I just found that in the media, it was just different. Now, let me say this, I'm a little older than you, so I may have experienced that early on where you didn't, you know, so I think that may have something to do with it.
I've learned that a lot of the successful companies throughout the U.S. have a mix in their boardroom. They have women and men, and they're the most productive because men and women don't think alike. You know, and when you understand that and understand that what you have to say is a value, you know, when you have that confidence in yourself and can speak up, it really shows confidence, and people start to look at you differently. If you told me 20 years ago I was going to be sitting here today talking to you all, I would have said you were crazy, because I wouldn't have spoken to anyone in public. But in this moment, I was like, I just cringe. I'm in print for a reason. I'm not out. My face sometimes is in the publication, but that, that's it. But, with my position, I have been forced to do what I'm uncomfortable doing, but, it's sometimes you can create your own obstacles. So you've got to learn, that obstacles are going to be a part of your life. And the more you learn to navigate around them and you learn from your mistakes, the more you're going to be successful.
And it definitely is about learning from your mistakes. It definitely is, and navigating around them. Again, for me, it was recognizing that no matter what I did, you're not going to change other people. You just can't do that. And that's not your responsibility. You're only responsible for yourself. So you have to learn how to handle the situations that, that you're approached with.
And some of that learning may come from your own personal mistakes, but also having mentors who've maybe already been down that path can also help you as well. So how important have mentors been in your life? Or maybe you as a mentor to someone else?
At the last one, I realized, standing right there where you were, that I didn't really have a lot of mentors. I just didn't. That was so weird to me. And I can't remember who was the sister that was sitting on the end? I can't remember her name. Yes.
Jolene?
Patrina Spiegler, right. She and I talked later, and we started talking about the fact that I have more mentees than I am. I have more mentees than I have mentors, and I just didn't. But the light bulb went off last week or week before last when she said that even as an adult, she had her girlfriends, but then she had her go-to people that were professional, not necessarily in her line of business, but just in several, industries that were her cheerleaders and her people she could call and talk to. So we have developed a relationship based on that, and I have vowed to have that. Now, I don't know that I thought I needed it. It was just so weird. It was just, like I said, I told y'all last week, I'm learning more than I think the students are, because you do need that. You do need that. I mean, I guess I had them as a college student, but as an adult, I didn't. But I recognize I do need them.
I, just like you, find myself in a position where I am being a mentor to a lot of journalists, and having done this now 18 years, now I'm kind of like the mama in the newsroom, even though I'm still not quite old enough to be anybody's mama in the newsroom. I'm the person that they come to, whether it's something about, is this outfit okay, how's my makeup, help me talk through my story idea, because I'm an easier, even though I'm considered, a newsroom manager, a newsroom leader, I guess maybe I'm an easier sounding board than going to the boss,
right.
And so I've even found myself in positions where if there's an issue, sometimes my news director will come to me, and then I'll be the one that takes it to the person, because it will come a little bit easier from me than it would from her. And it's just the dynamics about things working in a newsroom. But I see the position of, being that newsroom mom as a very valued position, because we are a mid-sized market, and so for a lot of kids, and maybe they call me mom because I call them kids, but for a lot of the kids, this is either their second job or their first job. And this is a lot of times where people, and Meaghan can probably echo this is either where they make it or they burn out and they're like, I'm going to law school. I'm going to be a preacher, or I'm going to law school. That's what happens. I'm not doing this. And so, I see the responsibility in, if I see someone who is a great journalist and I know what they can mean to the industry, making sure that they don't give up here. And I've got, folks who are my mentees who have gone on to network and are working in top 10 markets, top 5 markets, and they still call or send me a Facebook message or drop me my DM and be, what do you think about this? And I'm like, what? You're making like 6 times as much money as I am. Why are you asking? But I do appreciate that, and I value that, and it probably is, it's bigger than Emmys, it's bigger than Burroughs, that is a sincere compliment to have someone, make it further than where you are, and then they still come back and ask your opinion. My husband calls it being the kingmaker. You don't want to be the king, but you love being a kingmaker.
Right.
And so that's kind of where I see myself now.
Well, you brought up a good point. I think in any work environment, you should at least have somebody that you go to. For me, when I was at WIS, Judy, and I know Judy's a mama.
She still is.
Yeah, I know she's a mama. And I remember having to go to Judy because, and she even pulled me to the side. She's like, okay, lipstick's a little bit too much. And, you've got to dress like people are dressed. When I did awareness, you got to dress like people are dressing on Sunday morning. So she was my go-to at the station. And there were people within wherever I worked. Jackie Freeman was one, and that I would go to. And I guess there would be mentors, but I do think if you are in a business, if you're here in school, wherever, you should have somebody that go-to that you trust and that has your best interests at heart.
I want to pause for just a moment and recognize President Meaghan Norman. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you are. It's like, I want to see you on TV. I see you on TV too.
And actually, that goes to my next question. We're talking about image, and maybe more so for Tre and Darci, but image is so much more than just the words we read or the images we put on TV, but it's how we carry ourselves. And when we go home, we can't just shed the WIS part of us or the WLTX part of us, because those titles, those tags stay with us. They become part of our identity, whether you like it or not. So how do you manage that? How do you manage your image so that you can keep your job, in a sense?
Well, Facebook is one that you have to, I learned early on that a friend of mine had posted something about the networking and how they felt about the chamber, and he just got commented with all these negative comments about the chamber, and the chamber called him and said, why are you doing this? Making negative comments about the chamber. And he said, it's not me. And it's like, stop it. But, when I make a post on Facebook, I have to be very careful about what I say, and how it's presented, because I'm still representing the publications, no matter, even as a personal, on my personal Facebook, and making sure that, you don't say those things that ends up on Darci's show that you are highlighted. So, it's just be careful. Just be careful about what you do and what you say. And that goes for any
Do you feel like there's no real personal boundaries in a sense? Because let's say you have a personal Facebook page or a personal Twitter page. Do you still feel like that can be seen as Darci Strickland WLTX?
Well, you are your brand. I don't care what you do for a living, you are your brand. You're walking, talking, breathing brand. So people will believe about you what they see about you. I tell the kids at work all the time, I'm so glad I got to turn up before Facebook that I ever did what all of y'all are doing right now. Like, I had a good time and nobody knows about it. But the people who I had a good time with who are in high positions who will never talk about it again, So we got to have a really good time before one picture could have ruined it all for us. So I just want you guys to know that if you're one tweet away from disaster, so just keep that in mind. I don't want to, like I tell the kids at work, I want you to have a good time. I want you to live in your season, but you just have to realize that your season is not like what you want it to be all the time.
Especially for future employment. I can tell you right now, that's the first thing that your HR person is going to do is Google.
We denied internships to countless people because what was on their social media. Like, the list is way too long to even go chair because of what they posted on social media, which is like so dumb. Don't do that.
And you should Google yourself every now and then, every month or
That's
so.
so weird.
Yeah, but you should, because you want to know what other people see. And it could be incorrect information. But yeah, this is an age now, like you, Darcy, this was just not my reality. But now it is super important. And you're right, your personal is your professional, it's all the same. And you've just got to be extra careful about what you are saying, what you are doing, and even if it's somebody that you don't think will share your stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or whatever, and you know, sending out one of those pictures or saying some of those things, and next week he's mad at you. And like you said, we're on Darci. We're on Friends at 5. On awareness. You know, you just got to be so careful because it could ruin your career.
I think it's interesting too, with my husband being an elected official, it's like there are no boundaries anymore. You know, we go out, there's the news lady, there's the county council.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's interesting now that my children, they're just starting to figure out who we are, you know what I mean? And so, like, my youngest twin had this horrible habit of always saying, who is that? Because people will come up and say, hey, Darcy. And so I'm like, don't ask me that, because I don't know, you know? So it's one of those things that you don't think about. Your mama never tells you, don't ask who that is. But I have to say to my girls, don't ask me who that is in front of this lady. I don't know who this lady is. But I'm like, hey, girl, that's a stay right there. So, because she knows me, and I can't make her think that I don't remember her from the canned food aisle at Publix 4 years ago. I'll be like, oh, you got your haircut. Okay, now. But, you know, so there are, the lines are very blurred. It doesn't, there is no TV Darcy and then mommy. I mean, if I don't feel like it, I just don't go out. Because you want, you have invested an hour a day in your living room. That's who you want. So if I can't be that to you, I'll just stay home.
Yeah, there really is no off button.
No.
There is at all. You have to be on all the time.
All the time.
And yesterday I went to this fundraising luncheon with Brooklyn Mac, ballet dancer Misty Copeland, I'm sure you all know. And I was just watching her because it was interesting because people were doing to her what people do to me sometimes when I'm out. And just seeing her, she had to be on all the time, whether she really wanted to be there or not, whether she was feeling good or not. She made a commitment to be there, so she had to put her best foot forward. And so that's what we have to do all the time. But with that being said, how do you decompress? How do you find that me time and find that balance between being a news anchor and being a mom?
I haven't figured it out yet. I'll be honest with you. I try. I have a very strong faith, and I don't believe God gives you more than you can handle. So he must think I'm pretty tough because some days I'm just like, wait, what? But I don't know. My girls are a great release. Like I gotta go home and finish some 3rd grade project again. Like this is my 4th time getting through 3rd grade. So they're a great release. They keep me humble. They don't let me be anybody but mommy. So those are good moments when I can just be mommy. But it's tough, because people invest their time in you by watching your newscast. There's a lot of different shows that they could choose. They could try to choose, Meaghan and Judy over Darcy. And so if they're watching Darcy and they call and they say, my power is about to get turned off, can you help me? Then I do have to stop and hear their story and understand what's going on. And because I'm the person who you've chosen to invest your time in. So I owe it to you to invest some of my time and make your life a little bit better. But I don't, I'll be honest with you, I haven't figured that out yet. I'm still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Well, I can say for me, I have learned that sometimes that I've got to take me time. And now that I'm in a different position, I'm working a regular job for a radio station, but I'm freelancing 90% of the time, so I've got to get out there and be on my hustle. But I've learned that sometimes I just can't go anywhere. I just got to stay home and just relax. Because, and that may mean I can't go to a concert that I really want to go to, and unwind, because I've got to be on. I've got to be hair, clothes, makeup, and so I just chill at the house. You know, I've learned, and I don't think I perfected it, but I've learned how just say no. You know, just say no and stay home and just give myself that time.
It's a little bit different being in print. I can go out
Right.
and sweat without makeup on. But growing up in the industry, you know, with my dad running a newspaper, I was in a small town. Population was about 3,500, and I was related to probably about 5% of the town. My mother invented social media. When I was in high school, and I would come home, she knew everybody that I had talked to, you know, and so being in a small town, I was already aware of what people said and what people thought. And sometimes, I mean, I've gotten to the age now, I'm turning 55 in April. My two girls are grown, they're 25 and 28. Grandkids, so it's kind of like, I don't care, you know, and you just gotta let yourself, you know, go. You know, it's like, you know, if you say that I don't look good, then it doesn't matter. Or, you know, if I was wearing the wrong thing, you know, it's just, I've just learned to just let it go. That, you know, if I'm content with myself, then, you know, it doesn't really matter.
That's so funny though. That just reminded me of a story. I remember when I was still, I guess I was still at KISS. I was working at KISS. And there, you know how they do the summer concerts at the park. And me and my girlfriends had gone to the summer, it's hot, sweaty. So we decided to go to IHOP after that. I kept saying, I need to go home and get a hat. I need to go home and get, no girl, come on. Okay, so we're sitting up in IHOP and these group of people, they were whispering, and somebody said, hair, because my hair is scary. And I sat there, I'm like, so my girlfriend, Vanessa English, she says, that is not Tre Tailor. So now everybody gives a different name. The guy's like, I know that is Tre Tailor. And they're like, that is not Tre. So now I'm like, you know, sinking into my feet. And then he says, well, you're a public official. You should be speaking to us. I was like, first of all, I'm not a public official. That's not fair. I'm not a paid political somebody, you know. I said, and anyway, I'm not even Tre Tailor. I just went with it. It's like, so it's so funny you said it. It's like, oh no, go somewhere. Oh, stop the madness. Stop the madness.
You know, with all that being said, it still is a really big compliment. I think I speak for all of us when people do come up to us and recognize us for our work, because it means that we, in some small way, are making a difference. So even though we may have our moments, we still really appreciate the public.
And it's weird when people can verbatim say what
Yes.
you said.
Yes.
You know, and it's gone. I
Or
was talking,
wearing,
I was talking to you last week about, you know, emceeing and doing that. And after I've said, especially with radio, in TV, you're a little bit more prepared, but in radio, after I've said it, it's gone. And then somebody can come back and tell me exactly what I said. I'm like, girl, I have to just believe what you tell me. What I said yesterday at 5 o'clock. You know, so.
How important is education to all of you in your field? Education versus experience?
Well, I don't know. For me, I think it's the same. I think experience is so important. Yes, education is key. It is so important. And like I said, like many of you, I had my son, you know, very early in my teens, so I had to leave college, have him, and then come back and then go right to work. So my work experience was everything. It was everything. And now, it's so funny now, I was talking to Katrina about, I'm starting to feel like I want to go back to school or something. But I think it's equal. I think your experience is so important, especially for you older students, you students that are not traditional students, to make sure you do not neglect or brush under the rug your work experience. Because there you get your maturity, you get your real experience, on-hand experience, You get to learn how to really work with people and handle situations, and those are things you don't learn in classrooms. You just don't learn that real work experience in classrooms, so I think it's equally as important.
Well, your work experience helps you understand why you went to school in the first place, because you are bringing into a corporation or a business, you know, your knowledge, and that's the reason why they hired you. But without that education, then what would you have? So it is important, and it's important because when you're hired, you know, you're not just hired for your experiences, you're hired for your knowledge, and you're there to help the company too at the same time.
I almost feel like education is proof that you are trainable, teachable, and dedicated to something. And so in order to get experience, you have to prove through your education that you're the type of person that they want to keep on their team. I do think experience is the best teacher. A lot of times when, you know, we get kids who have just graduated and they start working at WLTX and they have said, wow, I learned more in the first week than I learned in 4 years in college. Well, yeah, you did, but if you hadn't finished those 4 years of college, you would have never been here to learn more in 1 week. So I would never say that experience is more important than education, but I believe experience is a great educator.
I think in this industry, you really have to understand the distinction between the two. I know I went to graduate school at Northwestern, and when I started my first job, I had already had several internships working at TV stations. So I knew all about deadlines, the importance of deadlines, how crazy and fast-paced news can be. Now, I went to school with several people who had only watched the news, had only seen TV, and they went to school to learn about the fundamentals of television, but they really didn't understand the environment, and you really can't explain it to somebody until you live it yourself. Because I can tell you, you know, you need to be ready and on the air at 4 o'clock in 5 seconds, and if you're not there, you're gonna miss slot, and that's a bad thing. But you don't understand that pressure when breaking news comes down at 3:45, you still have to get your hair and makeup done, you have to go and run downstairs and get ready, put your microphone on. You don't understand that kind of pressure and that adrenaline until you live it. So the education is good, and that's actually why I went to Northwestern, because I had a lot of people tell me, you don't need to go and get a graduate degree in broadcast journalism. You've got plenty of internships, you have all that practical experience. You don't need to go and spend a lot of money and get another degree. But I felt like it was very important to me to hone my skills on some of the fundamentals of journalism that I didn't get in my undergraduate degree at Wellesley. And also on the job, you've got people from so many different backgrounds. It's kind of good to have one centralized place, for me anyway, where I felt like I was really learning the basics of what I needed to know to get into this business. But without those internships, without, I worked as a producer before I was on air, without having all that experience, I would not have known what I was getting myself into. And I always tell interns who come to WIS that a lot of them say, well, I want to be a news anchor. Well, I tell them that to be a good news anchor, I think you have to be a good reporter. To be a good reporter, you might want to be a good producer, or at least understand what they do, because we all work together. It's very much a team sport. And if you don't get, you know, that your producer needs content and has a show to fill, then you're not going to really understand what you need to do to help your producer out, which ultimately helps you out. So there's a lot at play there, but experience is so key.
And you're right, it is so important, particularly, I think, in the media, and even with print and TV, in the whole industry, to know a little bit of everything. You've got to know, because like Meaghan said, each piece works off of the other. So if you don't be discouraged if you start as an intern, or start as a producer, or start on audio, or start on camera, or wherever, because all of that will help you not only get to where you want to go, but it might even make you change your mind as to what you want to do. Because especially in this industry, you see mostly what the person in front of the camera, the person behind the microphone, the person writing the story, and you don't see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. But that is where the real power is. That's where so much creativity is, and oftentimes there's more money back there, you know, because that's where the real decision makers are. So I encourage you, if you are interested in this industry, to learn about every facet of it, because there's so much that you probably don't know.
Extremely versatile too. There's so many different avenues that you can go down. And also, even after you've gotten your degree and experience, you have to keep learning, because as we talked about earlier, the world's changing every day, and there's always, you know, if you just say, I learned it all, then you're fooling yourself. You know, it's a learning experience every day, and keep reading, you know, learn about what everybody else is doing, and, you know, not only in the state, but in the country and across the world. Being able to do research and find out what somebody else is doing different that you could bring into your workplace is always helpful.
And how would you say you challenge yourself? Because after being in the industry for 18 years or having so much experience where you're mentoring other people, how do you challenge yourself so that you can feel good?
I don't have a choice, you know, because journalism is changing. Every day it changes. I don't have a choice on not knowing how to use Instagram or Twitter, or I still can't figure out Snapchat. Snapchat makes me feel dumb. You know, and like the kids are like, Darci, it's just this. I'm like, I still don't get it. Like, why am I touching this? And why is it going away? I don't understand. But you, I don't like it. I want it to be here. I don't understand. What's this like little clock thing? I don't know. But we don't have a choice. We have to stay relevant. And I just don't have, I guess I could fall back on my laurels and not care, but there's nothing about me that doesn't, I've always been nosy, so I want to know everything. I want to know. And so if I have to figure out Snapchat to know, if I had to figure out Snapchat to know, I would have figured it out. But I don't really have to figure it out to know. So I think that's how I don't have a choice not to be challenged. I just have to keep knowing, I have to keep doing, I have to keep getting better. And I think in any profession, if you feel like you're as good as you could be, you need to do something different. You can't just be, oh, this is as good as I can be. Like my mom used to tell me, if you're the smartest person in your circle, you need a bigger circle. So just keep figuring out how you can do it better.
If you want to learn, if you want to grow, if you want to work, you've got to challenge yourself. I mean, I moved here right after 9/11 from Charlotte, and I started working at Citadel Broadcasting. It was Citadel at the time. Started working, doing radio, and I wanted to do some television. I was waiting for a television job in Charlotte. It didn't happen. I came here. The lottery started. I started doing the lottery. From there, because I was doing the lottery, I'll never forget Joe Penner said, Papa Joe, he said, oh, you're the right person to do, and I was working at the radio station. So you're the right person to do the lottery. Then Steve Crocker left, he was a reporter, so the awareness position became open. So Steve was like, just let Tre do, you know, so I started doing that. But at some point, so I was doing a lot of things, but at some point, Citadel Broadcasting went into bankruptcy, and they eliminated every midday position in all 25 markets. I was working midday. It didn't matter that I was #1 in the market. It didn't matter that my ratings were great. It didn't matter that I was the #1 biller. They were getting rid of people, and I was gone. I was shocked, but I remember the day that I lost my job, I said to myself, well, I guess God has something else for me. Not knowing, but I just said it instinctively. But because I had to, like you, I mean, I'm a hustler. I'm going to be up on my game. I just said, okay, I love doing production. I built a studio on my 3rd floor in my house. I started doing commercials. I knew a lot of people in the industry, so I had been doing public relations and PR at the station. So I just started going out there and getting clients and doing things, and things just came together. It was never my intention not to work for a company, but my pastor, I attend Brooklyn, I remember he said to me, so when are you going to start your company? And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now, but it just happened. So you have to be able to just constantly be willing to grow.
And not willing to change.
At all. at all, because this industry is, and I don't know as much about print, but I know the industry, radio and television, it's just too, it's changing. It changes very much. And if upper management leaves, 9 times out of 10, they are going to want to bring in who they know, who they're familiar with, who they want to work with. And that's what happened to me at WIS. Upper management changed. So it didn't matter that I was doing great. They wanted to bring in their own people. So, you know, it happens. So you got to be on it.
And you just don't let the word "I can't" be in your vocabulary.
Absolutely.
I've been divorced for over 11 years, and I've learned how to fix the garbage disposal, change the locks on my door, you know, and there's just things that, you know, you just say, you just do it. I think that's one thing that, you know, women are really strong at, is being adaptable to their situation. And just, you know, if you say you can't, then you're right. You're not going to be able to. But if you're determined to do, then you're going to figure out a way, and you just do it.
I don't know if you remember this, Darci. We spoke at a church together a long time ago, and I said something that you came back and told me that helped you open up Lola's. Darci opened up a girls' beauty salon. And in the speech, I said, you have to be more afraid not to do something than you are afraid to do it. You can be afraid not, you know, oh gosh, you know, but you have to be more afraid that if I don't do this thing, what's going to happen? What am I going to miss? You know, the whole if I woulda, coulda, shoulda. That is the worst feeling, not doing something and then going back thinking, well, no, you know, what would have happened had I done it? And I remember you said that to me, and I just said it because I believe it. You've got to be more afraid not to do something than you are afraid to do it. So.
I'm over here taking notes too. Getting back to the media, I want to ask how you keep your bias out of the report. We all have bias.
Yeah, and I'm doing news right now at 3 stations, and I try. And you know, I'm gonna tell you, I got in trouble doing awareness once. I never forget it. I believe this might have been my last awareness show. And I didn't even think I was interviewing Congressman Clyburn, and I think it was a presidential thing. I'm not really even sure. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I was just sitting up there just kind of agreeing with him, and I was accused of being biased. I don't think I was, but obviously Sharanda was my producer at the time. She's over at WLTX now. But you just have to, I think you just have to, you know, it's interesting because when you mentioned Tory and the county council thing, there have been several instances in the news where people that I know and that are friends are in the news. And I look at the story on the AP and I'm rewriting it and I'm thinking, I gotta report it. I mean, I'm not being fair to the viewer, to the listener, if I don't, you know. And of course, I've got to give the facts. You know, it's just integrity, I think. You just have to come from a point of, you know, what would I want, the viewer, the listener, what would I want to hear, what would I want to see, what would I want to know? And you just have to have that integrity and recognize that it's not personal. You're just doing a job. It's not personal.
And you're right. I mean, it is, as far as the magazines are concerned, we're writing for the reader. I've had so many advertisers come up to me and say, well, we'll run a full page in each issue if you do a story on us. And the bad part about that is if we did a story on one of our advertisers because we were paid to do it, then our readers would compromise that integrity, that your readership is looking at it going, okay, is this real? Is it paid for? And so you have to make sure that your listeners and your readers, that you're a credible news source. And when you start adding in your own opinions to things, you know, unless you're paid to give your opinion, you know, that you are compromising your listeners or your readers in doing that.
I think you put it perfectly. We're in the information business, not the opinion business. When there are stories about my husband, I'm not the one who reads it. So I guess I'm lucky in that way that I have a coworker. But like today at noon, there was a story that was directly related to county council, and I had to read that story. But I'm not in the opinion business, I'm in the information business. So I just give you the information and we just keep it moving. Obviously, when he won county council, we had to come out in the interest of full disclosure and, you know, tell our viewers, okay, this is Darci's husband, even though we have different last names. This is Darci's husband. We didn't have to say it every time I read a story. We said it once. If you saw it, good. If you missed it, that's too bad. But we said it once, you know, and we leave it there.
So you don't read his name?
If I don't
hire
If I don't have to, I don't. You know, if I don't have to say his name, I don't. If JR's sitting next to me or Andrew is sitting next to me, they read the story.
So what if the story at noon?
Then
Do you
I
just
mean,
not read it, or do you?
no, we still put it in. I mean, I can't cheat the viewers out of the information, but, you know, I do my best to think about the fact that maybe he did take the garbage out after I left the house.
In having the important job of reporting just the facts, do you ever feel like your own voice is stifled?
I'm a little bit different in that since I'm a publisher and everybody's writing for me, but, you know, I hope that, you know, they don't feel that way because it is their job.
I feel like if I have something to say, that WLTX is not my place to say. You know, it doesn't matter what you think, I think of Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, you know, John Kasich, Ted Cruz. It doesn't matter to you what you think, I think. What matters to me is that I give you the information that you need in order to make an informed decision about the next president of the United States. So whatever I feel about fill in the blank, that's not the platform for me to express it. Now, I'm not going to say it doesn't sometimes come out because I'm a human and occasionally things, you know, if there's a story of child abuse, yeah, I probably look a little more disgusted when I read it because I'm not just reading a story of child abuse as a journalist, I'm reading it as a mother. But other than that, and you know, in situations like that, like the flood, I mean, how can none of us can forget October 14th and October 4th, and you know, after it was all over and done, and my general manager said, he was like, I realized at 13 hours that you had been on the air for 13 hours straight. How'd you do it? And I'm like, I don't even think I even realized, the minutes didn't even seem like they were moving. I mean, he said 13 hours, it could have been 13 minutes. It just was so unreal that we were living this. But, you know, as journalists, we lie to you and we tell you that's not what we show up with. That's when we show up, you know, when it's those stories, when it's, you know, as horrible as the Emmanuel 9 was. I'm from Charleston. Nobody else was going to do that story but me. I had to be there, you know. That's what we show up for, you know. It's a great day when there's a cat in a tree and that's our top story. But no self-respecting journalist is going to tell you, I can't wait to get to work, talk about a cat in a tree. No, we want that stuff. You know, we want the flag coming down. We want, you know, we don't want Emmanuel 9, we don't want flooding, death, and destruction, but we want big stories and we want to be able to tell those stories.
And a lot of these stories are very personal, and it takes an effect on all of us. I mean, I know I had to be debriefed for days after the flood. Oh my God. And the flag. I mean, it really does take a toll on you, but I think you have to really find that me time to decompress, because we also live those stories too. But I think the way that I like to get my voice in stories is just with the creativity of telling it. I don't put my opinion in it, but I mean, I can shoot it a certain way, or I can write it a certain way that expresses who I am, while still giving you the unbiased truth, as it has been reported to me. I want to open up the floor now to some questions. I'm sure you have some burning questions you want to ask us.
I will say, Meaghan, that we had someone, we're doing a lot of feed, ladies, just so you all know, so say hi to the people. Hello, people. And Tamara Robinson Burns commented that this is an awesome forum, and I will encourage them, if they have any questions, they can type it here or on Periscope at this time, while you all are asking questions as well.
Have a question?
Yes.
My name is Emily Ward, and I'm a professor at Columbia College, and we have just recently started a public relations program, an academic program, and I'm proud to have some of my students here with me today. And what you've been talking about is just exactly the kind of thing that we've been studying in class. I wondered if you could, you touched on this already, but I just wondered if you could say succinctly, what is the skill set that you would encourage these young women to acquire if they are looking for a position in the media or in public relations? Because Trey, I know you're involved in that as well. Just what should they be doing? What is the path? They're in college, but now what's the real path for moving into those careers?
Well, I would say make sure your reading and writing skills are excellent. Your reading and your writing skills. Be able to tell a story as succinctly, as entertaining, and when I say entertaining, I don't mean, you know, just so that someone will want to read it. You know, you can say, the cat fell out of the tree, to use the cat fell out of the tree. Or you could say, the beautiful brown cat fell softly from the tree. You know what I mean? Because you want people, especially in reading it and in hearing it, and you want them to experience it. You want them to experience it. So I think writing skills are so important, whether you are in the news or whether you are writing a press release or whether you are speaking to someone and communicating that information. And I find that particularly this generation, because social media is so prevalent, they are using a lot more abbreviations and words that are, to me, are not even words, just new words, you know. And so I find, because we deal with a lot of interns too, that a lot of the students are speaking social media speak and not speaking the King's English. And it's so important to learn how to write correctly and how to read correctly and how to speak correctly. It's one thing to be with your girlfriends and, you know, and you talk and how you talk, but it's another thing to be in a professional setting. So that's one huge thing. The other thing is to keep your mind open as to where those jobs may be. Because a public relations media job may not only be at the television station, at the newspaper, at the radio station. Every industry in America has a public relations department. Every industry is going to need somebody to handle their social media. They're going to need someone to handle their marketing. So check out the hospital, check out the city, wherever you think, which is going to be any place, they're going to need someone to handle their public relations and their media. So think outside of the traditional box. Those are a couple of things that I would say.
And come up with that kind of unique trait that they have to offer.
Yeah.
Spelling is important.
Yes.
It's extremely important, especially when you're in print, because, I mean, it's inevitable. Something's going to be wrong. And it's one of those things, we proofread the magazines over and over and over again, and sure enough, it comes out in print. I can't change it. These ladies can go back and like it never happened. Mine's out there forever. So just, you know, the creativity and making sure that, you know, that those mistakes, knowing that they're going to happen, just don't.
I would say two things. One, obviously, they're going to get an incredible education here and understand the importance of the English language, but also having some soft skills, you know, knowing that you need to show up on time, knowing that you need to make eye contact. Sadly, a generation of people who get a trophy for showing up sometimes don't understand how you got to put that extra work in to make something happen. A well-written email will get me to do just about anything. A viewer sent me an email on Monday and said that they were going to have a reveal party for their cousin, and she asked me would I do a breaking news reveal and give the birth of the baby. The email was written so well, I wrote her back, sure, why not? Like, I could not even say no to this woman because her email was written so well. So right now, there are 3 people in this world who know what that baby is, and I'm one of them, you know? So having those soft skills and understanding, just like I said, you know, earlier, you're getting paid to do a job. Nobody, you might get that job, but if you just think that showing up is enough to keep the job, you're not going to keep the job. So understanding that you're going to have to go above and beyond early on in your career to get to where you want to be. Don't be the first person to clock out. Be the last person, you know? And you don't actually have to say to your boss, hey, you see I'm still here, right? Okay. That's not enough. Just be the last person. Let your work speak for you. Because again, I know you're going to receive an excellent education. And then the other thing when it comes to PR, the good PR people know that there is a thin line between assertive and annoying, and you don't cross it. Because there are PR people who, as soon as I see their name, I'm just like, I'm not even opening this email. This is about to be some foolishness that I'm going to have to deal with for the next 3 or 4 days.
I'm literally open my
I
email.
open Trey's email. Because I know when I call Trey, she's going to be like, Darci, this is who it is. This is where they're going to be. This is what time. I got you a parking space in the front. I'll see you there. I'm showing up. But then there are PR people who don't even have the basic details down. And I'm on the phone telling you what you need to do. You know? So get with a good PR firm to do an internship. And there are a lot of good ones. One of my favorites is Flock and Rally.
Yes.
Flock and Rally. I mean, those girls send out a press release. I'm going. I don't care if it, what if. I don't even care what it is. I'm going because I know it's going to be right. You know, they do
make
it
it
right.
sound exciting.
They do.
They do. They do
They
a
do.
great job of that.
They do.
Yeah.
And
Also
networking.
I was going to say that, yes.
Networking, you
Yeah.
know, the more experience that you can get out there introducing yourself to people
Absolutely.
and, you know, and knowing how to approach someone and get them to talk, then that, you know, that's extremely important. The more people that you know, the more people you learn about, and just, you know, just drawing off of that energy too.
Absolutely, I was going to say that. Networking is so important, and I know we talked about that, you know, before in this class. You have got to, you know, I've heard it's not so much about who you know, it's about who knows you. The reason why I can call Darci and even Meaghan, you know, when she got here is because I know them, because I have forged relationships with them. Because you go to places and you meet and greet and you go up and say, hi, I'm Tre Tailor, how are you? Because you keep in touch with people. Networking is huge. And I know a lot of people are skeptical or not sure about how to approach people. I say, just go up and say hi. And say your name. Hi, I'm Tre Tailor. And just have a conversation. You don't have to make up a conversation. What do you say? Hi, I'm Tre Tailor. I love your green dress. Or just start a conversation and then follow up on that conversation.
Start with the shoes.
Well, let me tell you something. I was going to tell you when we finish that I love your shoes. I was just going to tell you. But very cute, very cute. Little booties with the dress. I love that.
Well, I would also add in terms of skill set, and Darci's going to talk about this, but knowing your audience. So if a PR firm reaches out and they want to pitch a story for TV, but there are no visuals there, then you don't really know my audience. And so that's not going to be a good story for me or for my audience. So I need to know who my audience is so I can tell the stories that best serve them in that community. Also listening. I think we take it for granted a lot, and especially I think with us, like we're always thinking about our next question, what we're going to ask and how we're going to say it, you know, when the deadline. I mean, we're constantly, our minds are going. But you have to be able to step back and just listen to people because sometimes they'll surprise you. You know, a story that is pitched in a morning meeting may not be your final product. Your story could have changed just based on who you're talking to. Or, you know, even just striking up a conversation with somebody in the grocery store or on the street somewhere. You never know where a good story idea could come from or where a good networking opportunity is going to come from either. So just really being able to listen and not being so, how is this going to serve me? And what is my next step? And what is my response going to be? But just seeing what they have to offer because that, I think, is the most valuable in this team.
You gotta understand, a lot of us get probably 100 to 200 emails a day. So if you're not presenting yourself in that first, especially in the subject line, then it may not get read.
That you're a phenomenal woman caught your attention.
Yes,
We have a question from a viewer who would like to ask, in regards to the pay inequality of men versus women in the workforce today, do you all feel there is a minimal gap in the field of journalism?
I would say yes. Your starting salary is your starting salary in journalism. Now, here's where the gap comes in. If you are a man in market number 75 and you make, I'm just throwing out numbers, you make $40,000 a year. Your $40,000 is going to go further than a woman doing the same job because you're not buying makeup, you're not doing hair, you're not buying, you know, it's just so what I always say to young journalists is, if you're not going to get an allowance for hair or for makeup, then you have to negotiate that into your salary. If you know it takes $5,000, an extra $5,000 a year for you to stay slave, then you're going to have to negotiate that extra $5,000 into your contract.
You gotta get your hair done.
Right, you're not just going to, I mean, this is a visual medium, you know? Nobody's just, you know, if you're looking a hot mess, they might watch because you're looking a hot mess, but they're not going to turn you back in. So you have to be able to understand the needs that you have in this market, or in your market. But I think starting salary is what starting salary is in my experience.
Darci, I have to share, to piggyback on that statement, you will get a text message if you're here. Is that you posted that on Facebook,
I'm always
right?
surprised at the things that people things that people email me and, you know, and say, like, the most backhanded compliment that I get from people is, oh, I thought you were going to be a lot fatter. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what world that's a compliment. Where exactly, you know, with you, oh, I thought you were going to be a lot bigger. I watch you every day. Stop saying that to me. People, stop saying that. I don't want to walk on your job and be like, oh, I thought you were going to be a lot smarter than you are. You know, like, no, say that. That's just, you know, it's like, but because I come to their house every day at 12, 5, and 6, they can tell me whatever they want to say, and I'm just like, don't do that. I'm feeling stupid. Not really anymore, I don't, but, you know, after 18 years, you just kind of get used to people saying whatever. Yeah. So, it is what it is.
Any other questions for our audience? Yes.
And this is for all three of you. How do you deal with your personal life and your family life being such a part of the public eye? Because I feel like I know Logan is one of you, you know, and I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know her. I feel like I do, and you have already been bugging you. My daughter loves your hair. So it's like I'm watching, I'm thinking, we don't know them, but we assume we do because we do see you in the public eye as well. And we know when the children are born or, you know, what they dress up for as Halloween. So how do you manage to keep that family unit to yourself and not have to share it with the public eye? How do y'all do that?
Well, I think I did. I mean, you know, Matthias with my son was, you know, I was in radio and Matthias was born. So we had to sit him down and kind of, and it's interesting because you said your girls are now kind of finding out, you know, the whole thing. So I had to, you know, sit Matthias down and try to explain to him what was going on because we didn't want him, you know, if somebody came up, we didn't want him to be afraid, and we didn't want him to feel so comfortable with the person, or if a person says, because the person knows so much about you, as a child, the child may think, okay, this is someone my parents must know, so I can go with them. So we had to constantly talk to Matt and just, you know, let him know, even more so, you just don't go off with anybody. You are, you know, personable, you are mannerable, but you just can't. Now, it's so funny because now as he got older, he hated when people would walk up to him and say, you're Tre's son. He didn't have an identity. You know, I mean, to the point where they thought his name was Tre's son. You know, they thought his name was Tre's son. And I just recently, and Matt's 25, I just recently found out that he really had a problem with it. That he just didn't feel like he had an identity. because, and because I talked about him when he finished high school, I talked about him when he went to college. I mean, everybody knew all of my little business and Matthias's business. But, so it was a, you know, it was a thin line. But I know for me, we just had to really tell Matt. Now, the other thing we had to do, and this goes back to you and your girls, because you know, we don't know people's names. So, whether it was a guy, or whoever I was dating, or Matthias, I would do this. This is my son Matthias. That was the cue for Matthias to say, and what's your name? Because I sure didn't know. But if I say, hi, this is Matthias, then, or this is Marcellus, or yeah, I'm introducing who I know. So then the other person would know to say, well, hi, I'm Wanda, you know, or Matthias would say, hi, and what's your name? You know, so you have those conversations at the house, you know, and I think I've learned not to talk so much about him now that he's told me that he doesn't want me to and he's gone.
If you date somebody you don't like. I listen to Tre every morning. You don't like her, right?
That is not true, you talk now. That's what you said, though. I didn't say that. No, you talk.
I'll stop this.
Please, no, I want you to stop listening. I want you to stop talking about what you did.
It is kind of strange because you do walk out and talk to, you know, people stop you and say, you know, congratulations on your granddaughter and grandson.
Right.
And then I'm like, do I know you?
Right.
And I forget, you know, I write a letter and have a parent each month, and I share a lot of things. I live in Greenville though, so it's different that I don't run into a lot of people, but when I do, and when I'm in Columbia and somebody comes up and says something about, you know, my past, I'm like thinking, where have I talked to you before, or, you know, how have I met you? And then when they come back and, you know, eventually tell me that they read it in a magazine, I'm like, oh yeah, I did talk about it. It is something that is hard. My granddaughter, whenever I would go out and, you know, we'd run into people I knew, she looked at me one day and she goes, do you know everybody? But you know, that's one thing that comes with it. Of course, I grew up, I was in the same situation your son was in, because I was in my hometown, I was my dad's daughter, Fred's daughter, and my sister had an older sister, so going up through school, I was always her sister. And here, I really created my own identity, and I've been able to do that, which is fabulous.
Yeah.
So hopefully your son will get through.
You won't have to go through therapy.
I didn't have to go through too much.
Well, the interesting thing with my daughters is because they are still so young, they're just in safety things that I don't, you know, reveal and talk a lot about what school they're at, you know. I share what I want to share, you know what I mean? So I post pictures, but I don't post pictures all the time because they're, you know, they're changing. So I don't want you to always be able to recognize them if you think you're going to snatch one and get a ransom or something, you know what I mean? So I talk about them more than I post about them. And so they're okay with it. You know, like I said, the twins are 8, Logan's 11, and so I'll never forget, Logan was in K3. And her teacher said she couldn't wait until I came and picked her up, and she was like, Logan said the funniest thing today. And I said, well, what did she say? And she said, well, 2 things. She said, the first thing she said was, my mommy makes milk, because I was nursing twins. That's the first thing she said. And then she said there was a new student, and she said to the little boy, what station is your mommy on? Because at that point, you know, she thought everybody's mommy. You could turn on the TV to see everybody's mommy. So, you know, she doesn't really like people to know too much about it because she is obviously trying to have her own identity. But the twins just soak it up. They just